Gateway albums. What are your gateway albums? Think of it. It's like, what's your gateway? There's gateway drugs, right? That first drug that someone can take, and it's the gateway. It opens them up into a whole new mindset, shall we say. Well, the same thing goes with music. If you're watching this, you like music. That's why you're watching this. It's music. And there's so many genres of music, but we all have a gateway album. That album that opened us up to that genre. Sometimes it remains our favorite album of that genre. Other times it gets replaced, but no matter what, it was that album that got us excited to explore this genre further. So I want to show you some of my gateway albums to a variety of different genres that I truly love, some more so than others. The first one we're just going to start off with, this was my gateway to punk, Stiff Little Fingers. Knew nothing about punk. Knew the name, I'd heard about it, heard, was going to New York, London, but I'm in the Midwest. We're always 5 years behind in the Midwest anyway. And I had a friend bring over a pile of punk albums. And the very first one I put on, he goes, put this one on. You got to listen to this vocalist. And I put that on, and Stiff Little Fingers. And it just blew me away. Now, he also had the Sex Pistols. He had the Clash. He had the Cramps. Every single one of them was the most exciting thing in music I've heard in ages. And to this day, it still excites me when I hear it. But this was my gateway. This was the first one that we put on that I just said, that's something I have to have. This is absolutely some of the most amazing stuff. It was fast, it was raw, but the voice just sounded like he had been eating, razor blades. It was something else. Stiff Little Fingers, my gateway to punk. Soul music. My gateway to soul music, you could say soul and funk, even electronic, is Stevie Wonder's Talking Book. I bought it off of Columbia Record Club. I didn't have any albums really. It was one of my very first albums. But on here, there was the song, You Are the Sunshine of My Life. And I knew that song from AM radio. I had heard that. So I bought this album. And when I put it on, the very first song was You Are the Sunshine of My Life. But on here also was Superstition. You and I Can Conquer the World, Tuesday Heartbreak, You've Got It Bad Girl. I mean, it was just one great song after another. Music like I've never heard before. And I was probably in junior high, maybe high school by now. And it was just simply amazing. I had also got in his next album also after this one. It just wow. Made me a fan of Stevie Wonder, though I can't say I'm a hardcore fan of Stevie Wonder. I have my favorite albums from him, but not the whole discography. But entered me into soul. Oh, prog. I'm known to be a big prog guy. Not. But this is considered prog, and this would be my entryway. And it's something I never knew about, but my older brother went to college, and when he came back home in 76, he told me about this group called Pink Floyd. He goes, you got to go get that album. Now, my brother wouldn't buy an album because it would cost money. He never spent money. He just had me spend it. But I went and I bought this. And we put that on. So he was there when I put this on and just began talking me through these scenes, telling me what was happening and what was going on. And it was mind blowing. I guess you could talk about a gateway drug. This was a gateway drug to music that was more than AM radio, something I had never heard of, never even considered music could sound like this. It was like a life-changing experience. That's what the Dark Side of the Moon was. I became a big fan of Pink Floyd. That is a group that I will collect and try to get almost everything. Again, I don't need everything, but this album, it just, the memories flood back. That first time I listened to it, and you heard that flying saucer, and when it crashed, and then getting the bejesus scared out of you when those alarm clocks went off. My brother thought that was just the funniest thing in the world. I just jumped out of my skin when those alarm clocks went off. So my entry into prog. Entry into hard rock. And my friend Rusty Grubbs introduced me to this as I was in the Five and Dime Ben Franklin looking for an album, which, they had about 30 to choose from. And not knowing anything, he says, Led Zeppelin. I said, I do not. And this is probably 76 again. So he gave me this album here. And I was trying to see when this one came out. This came out in 76. So, yeah, it was in 76. And so I went and I put that on. And Achilles' Last Stand was the first song that came on. And I couldn't believe the guitars I was hearing, the drumming that I was hearing. It was the most amazing thing. When my brother came back from college, he told me about Led Zeppelin 5. And that one I had to go out and get. And every song on that was great. Every song it was amazing. But this was my first really foray into hard rock. I liked Bachman Turner Overdrive. I call them rock, not hard rock. This was much, much harder. So that was my gateway into hard rock. Gateway into hardcore. How about hardcore? Ooskadoo. Still one of my all-time favorite albums. I had nothing, I had punk, but there's hardcore punk going. Didn't know much about that. It seemed again where in the Midwest, not as big of a thing as on especially the West Coast. But I had read a review from Rolling Stone about this album. And so I thought I'll go buy that. And again, it's one of those I put on there and just starts off with New Day Rising, New Day Rising, New Day Rising. It kept going. I go, this is incredible. This music's just amazing. And so you sit there and you can't believe what you're hearing. Then they got Girl Who Lives on Heaven, which is great. I think we have on here Terms of Psychic Warfare. This is a beautiful original here. I mean, that term psychic warfare. But what was so interesting is, it was hard, it was fast, it was pounding, but there was melody underneath it. And you could hear melody underneath all the noise and just the aggressive music. Truly amazing and still one of my all-time favorites. Intro into psych rock. And this group's hard to define, but generally, if you look at a categorization, they put them at psych rocks. And so I'm just going to say that's it. Psych rock at that time, this would have been probably when I got this, I would have to say about 1986. Didn't know really anything much about psych rock. And so at a little local record store down in Cedar Falls, Iowa, which is next to Waterloo, the record store person there introduced me and says, you need to listen to this. I was listening to these different things and I was finding off Rolling Stone, but I'd never heard of the Velvet Underground. So this was the gateway album to the Velvet Underground that he gave me. Velvet Underground now is right up there as all-time favorite group. That varies, but this is definitely one of them that I would collect most anything I can. And so he gave me this, and I went and I put it on, and I went back the next week and bought another Velvet Underground album, and then another Velvet Underground album. It was just this amazing music that was so different than anything I'd ever heard of. And it just grabbed me. And as he said, billions of bands were started because of this group here, Velvet Underground. So my intro to psych rock. I'll say intro into college rock. And when I say college rock, the reason why I'm going to say that is it's the Talking Heads. And, more songs about buildings and food or whatever it goes. It's such a weird title. More songs about buildings and food. And the reason why I say college rock is when I went to college, most of the stuff I was listening to was off AM radio. I didn't have FM radio until I got into college, got a stereo system, and hey, I could pick up FM stations. So I was learning things. So I was hearing things like the Moody Blues, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. These groups were unfamiliar to me completely. Here I am in college, don't know anything about them because it wasn't how I grew up. But there was this, and I saw them on Saturday Night Live, and I went out the next day and I bought this album. And this totally changed how I was buying music. It wasn't now about these hits, that were really popular or more on AM radio. It was now about this different type of music I could claim as my own. This was for my generation. It wasn't Beatles, it wasn't Rolling Stones, Kinks, anything like this. This was music for my generation as an 18-year-old saying, I claim this. I claim this to be mine and my type of music. And, it was big within the college radio stations and stuff. And so very instrumental. This group is another one that soon became one of my all-time favorite groups and still is. Blues, Gateway to Blues. These albums here, now this is the 3-album set that came out on Record Store Day, but knew nothing about the blues. But I was working in Chicago, and this would have been the early 80s. And I would always go to the library, and I would take out the record albums, and I would tape them. And I had probably over 2,000 albums on tape by the time I was all done with that. Lost them pretty much all in the flood, but they had in there these albums, Chicago, the Blues Today. And I never heard blues except for the Blues Brothers. Okay, John Newhooker was on there, but that's where I knew of blues. But this was really good, deep blues, and it wasn't by. Junior Wells is on here, Otis Rush, but you have Johnny Shines, Big Walter Horton, Homesick James, Otis Spann, Jimmy Cotton. This wasn't Wolf, this wasn't Waters. These were other ones, but they were from Chicago, and there was such energy. But I was intrigued. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's just like I had a hard time finding these albums, and I finally began finding them at record shows. But this one, and of course, building after the flood, this came out on Rolling Stone or on Record Store Day. This is the greatest album ever that I need to have. This was a gateway to blues, and I love the blues. This opened me up to so much stuff to say, I got to try this, I got to try that. Going to the library, I was able to find so many different blues albums, and I was able to tape them and get a nice blues collection. Once CDs became big, I had a very large CD blues collection, and now, of course, they're a lot more expensive, harder to get, but yeah, my gateway. Gateway to rap. I'm a rap. I like rap until about 1994. Then I kind of lost interest. But this is the gateway to rap for me. Run DMC. A lot of white guys like me would say, "Oh, the Beastie Boys." Not this one. I really, really liked it. I did not know much about rap. It was out there. I was living in Chicago, so I was here. By now, I had better radio stations on my radio. But this had Rock the House. King of Rock was on here. You Talk Too Much was one I really remember. You talk too much. You just won't shut up. Or that was just hilarious. You Can Rock This. This was just such an incredible album. It was just like, wow, this is so different, so new. And I became a fan of Run DMC. After the 1990 or whatever, I didn't buy any of the other stuff. But in the 80s, they were the rap band for me, and this was my gateway into rap, and it developed more into some of the hardcore rap, but this was it. Gateway to funk. There's two of them you could say with funk, and I forgot one of them. Sly Stone's Greatest Hits. That was a great way to get into funk, but really they got me into hardcore funk. The clones of Dr. Funkenstein, and when I got it off Columbia Record Club. And I know I've told that story a million times, but it was, I mean, it's just one of those things of getting a record you know nothing about. You was zero. I'm in my high school, you know, I'm living in a town of 3,000 people in Nebraska. We don't know nothing about any funk. I mean, that was non-existent. And I get this, and I put it on my turntable. It was just the strangest thing I've ever heard. But dang, it was good. Oh my goodness, gaming on you, Dr. Funkenstein. Everything for the one, funkin' for fun. Hey, we're funkin' for fun. I wasn't allowed to swear, I was being a minister's kid, but you could say funk. I'm funkin' for fun, man. No, nobody in my high school knew about this. This was like my own. This was like my own album, and Parliament again became a big part of what I loved in music, and I continued to look for more of them thanks to Clones of Dr. Funkenstein. Entry into jazz. I actually have a couple of them here. This is where I would. So many people entered jazz because of Kind of Blue, because it's a perfect album. It's my favorite album of all time. It's perfect. A neighbor brought it over to me who played jazz to introduce me to jazz because I said I don't like jazz music. I didn't. I had zero interest of jazz, and this was around maybe 1998. And I yet to, I mean, there was some jazz fusion in that. I just because they was cheap, and whatever. And then he gave me this, and it opened my ears and my mind in a whole different way. And I could not believe what I was listening to. It was just the most beautiful music. And this album, I put it on and it's fresh. It's fresh. And I hear new things all the time. And I can't believe, it's just incredible. But the other one was, this one, Cannonball Adderley, Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. It was like made, it was like it was live and that. Yeah, I'm not sure if it really was live because they like to make that stuff on there, but you just had him, Cannonball Adderley's talking, mercy, mercy, mercy. But it was so smooth. It was beautiful. It just, the tunes, they made you feel good. And it just made you smile. It just, the way Cannonball Adderley played was just amazing to me. And it is, I mean, I couldn't believe, how gorgeous this is. And it's still, I love listening to this album, but nothing is better. And that's my original 6i, than this album here to me in my life of any album. That's my Desert Island album. That would make me happy. So those are some of the gateways. I mean, and when you think of the genres, there's many more genres, that could have went into and looked at. But just wanted to give you some of these because we all have gateway albums. We all have albums that helped us enter into a new area of music to explore, and sometimes to find that this is my area. This is where I need to be. Sometimes we go down rabbit holes. Maybe we shouldn't because it could be awful costly. And it's easy to go down rabbit holes when you get into a certain genre of music. But we love our music, and that's the fun of it, to find something new. But it all starts with a gateway album. Have a great one. Bye.